pastor first asked about 40 members of the church to share our thoughts about the purpose of Vision for Mission and what it means when we say making a difference one person at a time, some of us were really excited. Some of us were a little skeptical, a little apprehensive about speaking in public. It's bad enough that we stand here, we get to do that, but then you have a camera, you have Pastor Johnson. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but some of us are up for the task. And then we did have one person who did mention that they would rather drink a jug of worms, live ones at that, rather than to stand in public and speak publicly. So there is a fear of that, so I'm going to get through this the best I can. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Fran Pepis, and I have been worshiping here at Shepherd of the Woods since 1990. And I also get to serve on church council, which is a blessing for me. I was grateful that Pastor had asked me to share my story about the mission at the Lakeshore rather than in Matthew 25, I was naked. Because at that point, I'm not sure I could have talked about that. And I think, well, Pastor Tobias is not here, but I think Shelley Tobias gets to talk about I was naked and you clothed me. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a journey of time and the will of God. So we do have these little handouts for you, so you can kind of look at this. This is a little bit of a pictorial, and I'm going to kind of fill in the blanks with regards to the pictures. So in 2003, Believing What is Unbelievable became our congregation, when our congregation began to vote to sell this 2.75 acres of property for $2.7 million. It was determined that the property was no longer functional for the growth of our ministry and the growth of our school and the outreach programs we wanted to provide in this community. Having large gatherings, retreats, and confirmation camps became really restrictive because we were simply running out of room and parking was becoming a challenge. We formed a property committee because at Shepherd of the Woods, everybody works in a committee, so we formed a committee. And we had 4 sets of criteria. We decided we needed 20 acres, and in that 20 acres, we determined that it had to be visible, accessible, affordable, and it can be developed. Over the course of a year, we looked at about 15 different properties. And we thought we got really lucky when we found one around the corner from us on South Side and Bay Meadows Road. Unfortunately, it was $1 million an acre. So having the 20 acres that we wanted, it was very visible, it was very accessible, it could be developed very easily, except it was not affordable at $20 million. So we kind of moved on. I do want to say that we also passed over the Lakeshore property during that search. So believing in the unbelievable, we met an amazing gentleman by the name of Joe Mora. And I don't know who was here, but by the show of hands, who was here at the Shepherd of the Woods in 2003? By show of hands. All right, so you may remember the name Joe Mora. He was a non-Christian type fellow, and best guess. He decided to sell his 40 acres of beautiful land to Shepherd of the Woods. It was significantly discounted. Other people were approaching him, were paying twice as much for the property. His passion about the property was it was going to maintain its beauty, and he didn't want to have his property turned into a rock crushing plant. He just didn't. He had lived there for 40 years, and he enjoyed the beauty of the property. So with many meetings and the persuasion of Pastor Johnson, who can be very persuasive as we know, and the will of God at hand, we got the approval to buy that property for $1.6 million. And the only criteria that it met, it was affordable. It wasn't visible, wasn't very accessible. And when we really weren't sure whether it could be developed on, because there was a 7-acre pond in the middle of it. But we took the leap of faith and we purchased it. Again, next, believing what is unbelievable, we needed financing. We hadn't sold this church yet. So we are going to our lender, and we asked the lender, can we have a little bit of money, like maybe $1.6 million? And with their leap of faith, because they already had given us $1.2 million for this church, they said, yes, you can go ahead and we'll be glad to do that for you. They believed in our mission. So in 2004, since we had no money, we didn't sell the property, we put up a 1,500 square foot outdoor tent. And I don't know if anyone here, but by the show of hands, who was actually in the tent at that time worshiping? So the pioneers. There was no air conditioning, there was no heat. We were bundled up in blankets at times. But the fact of the matter is that we began our fellowship and began to have our worships there, and everybody was gathering, and we began to believe in the unbelievable. 2006, anyone here that was a member in 2006? Just a few. The congregation voted to take the Southside property off the market. And we tried, very unsuccessfully. We got 4 letters of intent. They all tanked. And we sat back and we thought to ourselves, what are we doing wrong? Such a beautiful piece of property. I think what had happened was that we had to believe that God had a different plan for us. We really believed that at that time, because it became clear that it was really his plan and not our plan. And so at that point we began to realize we're supposed to be a multi-site congregation. Took the property off the market, and now, not having any money and having a lot of dreams, Pastor took the committee down to the Lakeshore, and we had this barn. Now you'll remember the barn had really nothing in it except some equipment to take care of the cows and the pigs on the property. And Pastor looked at that barn and he said, I want you to dream with me. And we said, okay. And he says, I think that what we could do is we can convert that broken down barn into a worship and meeting space. And our committee, while Pastor was looking at the barn, we kind of huddled together and we chuckled. And then Pastor gathered us back up like a bunch of sheep, and he said, let's pray about this. So we did. And with the amazing efforts of our congregation, time, talents, plus we gave Pastor a $10,000 budget, the barn manifested into a place of worship before our eyes. It was truly amazing. 2008, who's been here in 2008? Anybody 2008? The congregation just started to become a reality. The congregation started to become a reality, and the infrastructure was put in place. We had a 6,000 square foot faith center, which was dedicated. We planted a little Charlie Brown tree. It was about 2 feet tall and 2 feet wide. We prayed and we sang songs to the glory of God, and actually the seed of life actually started to spread at that time, because the Faith Center provided space for worship, Sunday school, youth ministry, and all people were invited to worship. In 2008, the economy tanked, in case anybody didn't remember that critical year, but not Shepherd of the Woods. Shepherd of the Woods, we began our Christian day school in 2008, which is amazing because most people were unemployed and weren't sending their children off to a paid school. 11 years later, fast forward, Shepherd of the Woods has provided a Christian education to over 800 children who get to hear the Christian message and experience the love of God. The ministry truly has changed the lives of those children and has planted the seed in their hearts and in their mind. 2011, contributions from the congregation allowed us to add a double-wide modular building, which now allows us to add new grades as we begin to grow our school, as well as sharing our locations with many community groups. We have the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, an appraisal club, a photo club that's beautiful, Sons of Norway, and Haven Hospice has a bereavement camp for children who have experienced tragic loss in their lives, and they use that property for them to go and meditate and to recover and heal. What an amazing gift we have to offer. In 2014, the Eagle Scouts were using the property, and an Eagle Scout came forward and actually dedicated a ramp to the lake house. Dedicated and built it. And again, through the generosity of our congregation of time, talent, and treasures, the floor in the Faith Center was replaced with a porcelain tile. I think many of you were involved in putting that down. I didn't know how to put down tile, but I kind of learned quickly. All I could do was paint, I thought. This retreat is now being used 7 days a week by many of the Shepherd of the Woods congregational ministries for youth as well as adults, as well as many outside groups. The site is being used for confirmation camp for youth, not only for those living in Jacksonville, but they come from all over. This year, Shepherd of the Woods will be holding its first 3-day men's retreat on the site, and I'm hoping the men in our congregation take advantage of this because it's going to be an awesome event from what I hear. And also, if you did not know, over the last 8 years, the Pumpkin Patch, and I know a lot of you have been volunteers at the Pumpkin Patch, has brought over 8,000 kids, parents, and teachers to the site. They